company will support my passion if I can find 2 other people to go and do something and I can stick with it for, a couple of months, then the company will always support me doing that. And I thought that was, super forward thinking. And as, the organization grew, the committees and what they were doing grew as well. And that was really cool to see.
That is super cool.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think you're right. That's the only scalable model that I can think of, or rather, I've never seen these things fly off for a long time. Something comes up, you build some fancy name around a kind of a group of people who like to encourage others to get creative, to get involved in these activities, and then it all fizzles out. But if you have, you have those music societies and drama societies and, universities and colleges, something like that, I think that's something that can go along. But I hope, I don't know. I've never...
People, one of the things, and, I'm a big fan of kind of, the business psychology and, outside of like the partying social aspect of it. And one of the things that I think we're really missing as, with this isolation is breaking bread. A lot of, most of my business development is not done like this. This is like my run of the mill, pitches, lawyers, like this is like the boring part of my job. The fun part of the job is, meeting people. And, I think sharing a meal is one of the most important ways to build connection. And it makes sense. You're getting the dopamine firing and you're right there. And so people associate a good feeling with your presence. And, when you do that for a group of people, when you're an organization, it creates that bonding effect. Something that we did, with our Techstars team is, we had these dinners where, they were like, basically food that you like. And it could be like, ethnic food for you, or, if you like tacos, and, I'm certainly not Mexican, but I freaking love them. Let's go. Yeah, let's go and do that. But the idea is that you were saying, hey, for example, Yusuf, who you guys have on, on the previous show, he had this incredible like Jordanian home cook service. Like it wasn't like a restaurant; it was like some mom, and he like carted in like these massive boxes of, one of the best meals I think I've ever had, and for the rest of my freaking life, I will think, the best Jordanian meal I have is because Yusuf Wadi, found this like mom somewhere in Dubai that does like home cooking for other Jordanians. It's like some Wasta, group. And I'm like, great, I will forever remember that. And that is a lot of positive, feelings to have around a person, no matter what ends up happening on the business side. And how to replace that, in these times, I don't know. I was even thinking, there should be like a Zoom extension that automatically lets you like buy a lunch or coffee, and it like triangulates the delivery times between the two people so that lunch arrives at the same time as for everyone. I think that would work.
That's a great startup idea right there, man.
We're talking about. I'm actually kind of hungry for some tacos right now. I think we're gonna go for tacos after this.
I'm super hungry. Period. This is really interesting. I think that this is probably one thing that, and I love food. I mean, my other startup is actually based on and around the idea of like how to enable the food ecosystem. And the principal sort of element for me always is, it is the binding factor that helps relationships forge and become whatever they need to. It may be passive, it may be direct. People maybe meet for the purpose of the meal. Maybe they meet because the meal is an excuse for them to be able to meet. And, meal times for the team, we have a country office in Pakistan as well. And the team there is very formal about formal in the sense that they're very particular about taking their lunch breaks together and using that time to just shoot the shit and not talk about work. Because they do that for the remaining like 15 hours of the day that they're working with us. God help them. But that need for people to feel comfortable doing that. Gary, you mentioned this earlier as well, like about the fear of God and people shifting or changing the way that they behave because of, it might affect their job or their future or something like that. And the way that we are right now, people are losing their jobs left, right, and center. So I wanted to kind of swing this chat a little bit into a slightly different direction on the personal side, and the impact that this is kind of having on. So the impact it's having is quite severe. A lot of people are losing their jobs, people with families, and I mean, it's serious. I know a couple of people who are basically hitting bottom barrel, and they're still trying, in their best to kind of maintain a positive attitude. But let's take a persona, somebody who is basically, life is just throwing bricks constantly, and he's smiling, but he's got one tooth left. And it's just like, how how do you keep it going, man? I mean, it's stressing me out to see people like that. How do they, because their home life is being affected. They might get thrown out of the country because, their visa is not going to have anyone sponsoring it. And is it, I mean, at that point, are you still like pretending to be happy about something? Or are you just like, I want to kind of take it a little bit onto that side and just kind of, how do individuals, like, what is your advice? Bless you. God bless you.
And I'm not supposed to mute. I've been told it makes editing more difficult. So you guys all got to hear and feel, but you're protected. This is the mask.
Yeah.
It's one of these things, and this might, I'm kind of very matter of fact about these things. Is I don't read self-help books. I barely read any business books in general. I think a lot of advice is highly generalized, and it's, whether in personal or business, it's basically impossible to give a high quality piece of advice that does not feel like just it's platitudes, right? Where it's just so surface level. Because you can say, great, be positive, make sure you keep, fitness going, because that, the endorphins will help you, maintain a positive outlook. Don't have a crappy diet, same kind of stuff. So there's like the body chemistry aspect of it, but also like really painfully obvious. And it's, make sure that you're reaching out to your community. Like, I think, for every person that's suffering, if you really want to help, really try to be empathetic and, spend time with them, understand their problem, and provide that one-on-one, hey, you should do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to make an introduction here. Here's a phone call that I'm going to do for you. I think that is amazing. And doing that for one person is much more impactful than writing a book or doing a podcast about advice to the stuff, because like general advice is generally available, right? Specific advice is nowhere to be found in anything, whether it's life or business, because usually you pay for specific advice, right? If you want someone to do direct coaching, whether it's fitness or life or business, you pay for that advisor, trainer, life coach, whatever those people do. So that's kind of the thing that, if you want to really make a difference, that's the way to do it. I think one-on-one help to someone is meaningful versus one-to-many.
That's a good point, actually. I never thought about it that way. Like, you're paying for someone's time and they're going to give you something that's tailored to you. But then the irony of being in a situation where you can barely afford to make your 3 square meals a day and needing that really serious help, like the phone calls and, an email introduction. I mean, who knows what doors that could open. I think that's incredible advice, because people who have, I think, a nature of wanting to help other people in need, they're there by default, whether they're in a crisis or not. But I think for the person who needs the help, I think the fear of asking and being a burden on other people, that's probably the thing that weighs them down so much. Because even if they have a super fun attitude and they're like the most energetic person in the room on any given Sunday, you're faced with like something so seriously problematic, it's hard to be that person and continue giving that energy. But then also, because you're the helpful one, trying to be the one being helped, it becomes harder. That's a good point. I hope so. I mean, I hope the listeners sort of take away from that piece, that if there's one thing you can do today is reach out to somebody who you think needs help and actually try and give them that one piece of help.
Yeah, and Zoe,
Yeah,
we remember we talked about this during another one of the episodes about startups. When you reach out, you find people actually wanting to help. There are more people willing to help rather than shoot you down, right?
It's
So
just
I
a matter
think
of
I think it's
asking
a
him.
great point. A lot of people feel bad in asking, and yeah,
And
I
funny
think
enough, the way to get something is not to, so the communication cadence, you'll find that most people will help if you just ask them right away. So like
yeah,
hey, do you have time for me, need a favor? And like all of that is just wasted space. Hey, it would be really meaningful if you could do this for me. And if it's going to be a yes, it's going to be a quick yes. And if it's going to be a no, then it didn't matter anyway. But you know, this goes back to like basic like sales perspective, right? Shorten that decision making for them, and get to a quick yes no. And I think most people, if they can, they will help. It feels good to help other people.
yeah.
It's always tougher when there's this uncertainty in the air, right? But you can just see, man, with the response to Lebanon and just how many people are willing to say, hey, whatever we got going is not nearly as bad as our friends over there. And you have this incredible response. And, any little bit helps, man. If you, bought that, Save Lebanon t-shirt from amongst few, great. You've helped. I think
I think we can
there is
actually
this
have a
performance Olympics. Yeah, there's this performance Olympics around being helpful or generous or something like this. And, I think it's all garbage. I think every little bit helps. And, there's this social media performative thing where I'm either hustling or I'm helping or I am more woke or I care more. Anything based more than zero is way more than should be expected from anyone in a fair society. And no one should feel pressured into doing it or feel the need to broadcast the help that they're doing.
Yeah, I think we can actually have an episode on this, guys. I mean, I know it's going to be more generic, but then help people start up at least somewhere. There are a lot of people who need these kind of advice, these kind of a direction.
100%.
Egg, you were saying about the broadcast?
No, I think I just like I see a lot of people like genuinely wanting to help, but I also see a lot of people saying that I've helped. Like like good for you, but like honestly, there's like
God will thank you.
God will thank you. Like, but that's true. Like, that community effect. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you personally from the people that I've helped and me helping myself. There is this cultural aspect in our culture about asking. And that is a barrier that I struggled with. I can tell you that right now. So, but then I realized, what's the worst can happen? They say no, I move on to the next person, right? So, and that whole salesy, send me a message, how are you, blah blah blah. Like, just get to the point. What do you want? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's fine if it's something I can easily do or something in my network or introduction. I'll do that. I'll be more than happy. But as well, some people sometimes ask for like stuff that I is not easily done. Like, can you help me write like a business plan? I'm like, whoa. Like, this is like, you know what I mean? Like, this is something that we're gonna sit down and like this has to be. I'm not saying it's paid or anything. I just might not have time for it, right? So, but that community effect is, I think, what we're, hopefully, what we're gonna end up building with the show. And we really like genuinely people, I know they reach out to any of us and say, hey, can you introduce me to this person? Especially if you're in investments, Gary, like myself, and they we're looking for investment. Do you know any investors, or can you help us with this, or can you look at our pitch deck, or all of that? And I'll be more than happy. Like, if it's gonna take a bit of time, but something I enjoy doing, I'll be more than happy to do it. But there's a limit to obviously what we can handle. But that community effect, I think, is crucial. What you're saying is, like bang on. People need to really use and abuse the communities, right? So and it's and one day it's just going to reciprocate back to you, and that's how it happens.
Don't be lazy.
Yeah, and the paying it forward, I think, is always important. But I think also in whether it's personal or business, I think, and this is always hard for I think specifically startup founders to hear, is that a no is most of the time a no relative to something else completely unrelated to you. And that is, same for personal things like, hey, can you, whatever, help me, whatever, move my apartment. I need an extra pair of hands. No, it's not because like I don't want to help you. It's because I made a commitment to like whatever, take my kids to the park, and that's more important to me than that. So like and it can be like any other level of commitment that might be more important. And in capital, hey, well, can you donate to my charitable foundation? Well, I'm actually donating to this, which is really important because I'm a family member afflicted to this thing, and I'm really passionate about this specific issue, and I devote all of my free time to that because I think I can make an impact. And it's, same way in business. Hey, would you angel this and this? Like, well, I'm looking at 20 other things. And 2 of them make more sense for 15 other reasons that aren't necessarily a judgment of the person or what they're doing with their lives or business. And that is just the universe. It's fine to hear no. Actually, like quick no is usually good. It's not something that's, I think, it's a very American thing to kind of get to a quick yes, no. But it just saves so much hassle from everyone, and it ends up being so much more efficient. And just in life and in business, and then everyone likes each other after a quick no. That's the best part because no one feels that they've invested time to get an outcome that they didn't want.
But that's so different from our culture.
Yeah,
right?
It's a very cultural thing. I agree.
It's completely opposite, Gary. We like to, we feel bad if we directly ask somebody and then, they probably feel a lot worse if they say no directly. It's a difficult thing to learn to say no.
But I spent a few years in the States. I did my undergrad from there, and I think I took with me from Pakistan that whole culture of like sit down, have a conversation, try and understand. But honestly, like when I came back, I think like my co-founder and I are both Pakistani. She's also my wife, by the way, full disclosure. But and we've been married for the better part of 13 years next month actually, and we've known each other for like almost 25 years. 25 minutes. Anyway,
you're a quick worker, man. Kids, dog, co-founding company,
everything in half an hour.
Let's hope she doesn't watch the show.
Yeah, right. She doesn't. I know this thing, so I can get away with this. Anyway, and I feel like she's actually better at it than I am. We're just kind of cutting through the crap and just, let's get to the point and try and fix it, because you're right, ripping the Band-Aid off. But I think that where that culture can meet that practicality, I think there's going to be a lot more mindfulness and basically I think that's an old world thing, and I think it carries forward from like a lot of cultures. Some have just hung on to it because it's just this sort of thing that lets them be nostalgic about the way their forefathers were in their but even here you see things changing. It's becoming more prevalent, but I think that you're right. I mean, it's cruel to be kind. Sometimes you just have to sort of rip that off and just be quick about it. But that doesn't mean that you're being a terrible person. It just means that you're saving everyone time, and you can actually open up avenues into other places. I know I've asked you guys for help, and you've been very kind with your time. And there's always going to be some value that comes from that, right? And it's a really critical component. But anyway, I think we've had a really long chat today, Gary, and probably time to let you go, because I know family time is very sacred for you on the weekends, and I'm also beginning to learn that now with a 10-month-old baby in my home. And these are the only day of the week that we get to actually sort of do that. So thank you very, very much for being on the show.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully see you guys at Techstars. I need to do a poll of let's actually do this live. Yeah. Would you go to a gathering of strangers
Yeah, just leave the house. Yes.
In a couple of weeks.
Yes.
I'm in.
All right. So we have
There's
at least
taco and
four. At
beer.
least 4 people are going to come.
Yeah. Anything for taco and beer.
All right. Well, that sounds fantastic, man. The pitchers of margarita are going to get poured. It was so fun talking to you guys. Hopefully you will have me on again sometimes in the future. I would appreciate that. And we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great.
So we do this thing where we kind of do like a what's our key takeaway from the talk as well, and it's a nice way of kind of summing up. Farooq, you want to do yours?
Yeah, I want to start because I really love the idea of building committees in the organization. That really connects with me, coming from a large corporate organization, talking about large corporates, and something that can actually change things around. And actually, it is something that's sustainable in terms of culture and being more receptive towards change. So that's my takeaway.
You're the committee auntie.
I don't know whether Gary knows what committee auntie is in our culture. Maybe enlighten him.
No, tell me. I don't.
Committee auntie basically gets a bunch of aunties, like a lot of housewives. It's a sort of a thing and they all kind of pool in a bunch of money. And then one of them gets all of that money at the end of the month, and they just keep pulling in. So it's a pot of money that everyone kind of contributes to, and then one of them gets it. It's kind of like winning the lotto every month. It's a very popular thing in Pakistan, but it's as an ideology of getting people to sort of share and participate and then contribute towards each other. It's great because then they can that person who gets that money can do so much with it, but you're kind of paying it forward again by remaining in that community. It's a really cool concept.
We have it here as well. It's very common, and it's very common here as well. Okay, so for my takeaway is obviously Gary, thank you for coming. It was great and it's always great to have somebody from our ecosystem to talk about the fun, talk about the community aspect. A big part of this is the support, and looking for support is very, very important, but a lot of people don't know where to look. And it's usually something always in their near reach or under their noses, but they are either scared or afraid or shy to ask. And community is there for you. And I think that's something that is, doubles down on everything that we've been talking about. So community is definitely something I'm going to obviously use more of.
I mean, for me, I think the most important thing that comes out of this, and I think I praise you for this, Gary, because I see how like dedicated you are to this. There's always a champion that drives that community activity. I mean, I see it with Taco Stars, and I see how diligently you manage and administer without being that administrator. Like no professional plugs, and I love the way that you do it. I think that consistency and that pattern of keeping it focused on non-work stuff, but just really keep that there. And it's hard to do. It's a lot. It's a thankless job.
I am deeply inspired by the Seinfeld soup Nazi.
No so for you. $5. No so for you.
No,
that's true, actually. And somebody has to bear that torch, and it's hard to do. So I think that for me, the takeaway is that if that's in your capacity, then do it and try and band people together. It's tough enough without having enough people to be able to do that. So I appreciate what you do, and I think that anybody else who has the capability and capacity to do that should do it. But there's always one person that needs to be, sticking it together.
I agree.
So where do you remember how we met? First time.
Where did we meet? Yeah, we met over the food thing. Yeah. Actually, you run this food group. Yeah, that's true. And we met over terrible biryani.
Something similar, Gary.
You used to drive a Mustang back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. He has this group called
things.
Must Have Desi Food, and we just he starts this one thing on Twitter, and then suddenly you've got 50 people. It's a scheduling nightmare, frankly speaking, trying to get 50 people to sort of get together on a day to eat. But when it happens, I mean, eventually you've got 10% converted, but there's that dog again. And but it's awesome when it does, because you never know who you'll meet. And here we are 3-4 years later doing a podcast. So God knows.
Cool.
So anyway, cool. Gary, you want to do a takeaway?
Don't be a jerk. If you want to make culture work, just don't be a jerk. I think is the key, and be nice to people. I think like if you default to that, it'll be okay. Things will be fine.
If only it was that easy.
It can be like it has to like that is like the atomic level of
being a jerk
else
is so
that we're
natural
talking
to
about.
most of the people.
Yeah, just don't be a jerk. If you start from there, everything else that spins out of that, is good. And these are good things.
I agree.
You just can't be a jerk about getting other people to not be a jerk. That then gets a little bit more complicated.
All right, cool, man.
So
call it a day and go home and be with the best people of our lives.
Wait.
Right.
There, I'm home.
Poof.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Gary, for the great chat. And I think we're going to wind up here. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
So do we all like press the leave button together, or do we do like this teenage phone thing? It's like, no, you go first.
All right. Good stuff, man. Gary.
All right.
Gary,
take it easy. We'll see you soon.
See you around.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.